What do you advise people on regarding overtraining? Is this something that are you seeing a population within those you work with who overtrain? And if so, do you have any pearls that our audience, maybe myself included, could use?
Yeah, so I do work with some athletes who are experiencing GI symptoms, and typically it is people who are doing a really high training volume, and often
Right.
people who aren't necessarily willing to reconsider that. So it's more thinking, certainly making considerations about how they might modify their training load if they can, but it's also making other considerations for how they can support their gut. So we do know that this acute gut permeability that occurs during exercise, that is actually blunted if you supplement with zinc, curcumin, glutamine, arginine, and fluids have all been shown to sort of dampen that acute response to exercise. So there have been studies to that effect, whereas wheat, lactose, casein, and carbohydrate gels have all been shown to exacerbate that acute permeability. So those are certainly things to consider, at least like within your training bout. And then we also sometimes consider there is actually a decent amount of evidence that suggests that low FODMAP diets can be helpful for reducing GI distress in elite athletes. Now, I don't really love having to restrict anyone's diet more than necessary. So usually what I do is instead talk to them about the timing of FODMAP consumption around their training. And often what I've found is that if they eat kind of lower FODMAP for their pre-workout meal, and try and eat that, 2 or 3 hours at least before their training or their performance, then they often experience less GI symptoms, but they can still consume those in their, post-workout meal after they've had that recovery period. And core temp has come down, the blood's gone back to their gut, and they can often tolerate more. So that's another thing.
And maybe something to tack onto that would be just looking at the supplements that you're using, because some exercise supplements can be pro-motility or laxative like.
Sure.
If you're using molecular hydrogen, carnitine, just to name a couple, those can be problematic. Magnesium, maybe you're having a hard time sleeping, so you're taking magnesium, and to flag this, what can be happening is maybe you're overtraining. That's leading to too high of a cortisol response, so you can't sleep. So you double down on magnesium. So the next day you're noticing your bowels are loose, right? So this whole thinking sort of snowball on you. And part of this is I've noticed these same things wherein I've used molecular hydrogen before workouts. And I can't say I'm super impressed with the data there. There's a few interesting studies, so it's something that I tinker with. But it comes in the form, at least that I use, which is magnesium plus carnitine pre-workout plus magnesium before bed. And so sometimes, especially if it's looser bowels, you might just be using too many supplements that are, laxative in part in their mechanism.
Sure. Yeah, that's definitely an important consideration too.